It's finally here. Hockey season has arrived. The Blue Jackets are playing an actual meaningful game tonight. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Flyers, and we're going to check in with another prospect with Locked On NHL Prospects. All that coming up on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Jay Foster, one half of this show. That's Hayden Heilshorn, the other half of Locked On Blue Jackets, and we want to thank you guys for making this your first listen of the day. Every day, Locked On Blue Jackets is your guide to the good, the bad, and the ugly of your favorite team and ours, the Columbus Blue Jackets. And we're available on all podcast platforms, on YouTube and on SiriusXM. If you email us at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com with a screenshot of proof that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, you're going to be entered into a draw to win 2 tickets to the game on November 2nd against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So if you haven't done that, make sure you do that because it closes at midnight tonight, and it would suck if you missed out on that. But that game is away. We're going to talk about tonight's game. The Blue Jackets are playing the Philadelphia Flyers. Torts is back in Nationwide. The Flyers have a little bit of a different look than they did last season. Rasmus Ristolainen is not going to be playing. Kevin Hayes was traded. Tony DeAngelo was bought out. Sean Couturier is back. Cam Atkinson is back. And they have added Mark Stahl and Sean Walker on defense. Hayden, how hyped are you for the regular season to start?
I mean, I don't expect any Blue Jackets fan to get or accomplish any work done today. Please, that's not like my, saying
Locked On Blue
don't work
Jackets
today.
does not advocate any kind of time theft or not showing up to your job.
But I just don't know how you focus knowing that tonight the Blue Jackets drop the puck at Nationwide and the season gets going. I love the fact that they're playing a team like Philadelphia, who pretty much doesn't have a future until Matvei Michkov comes. Like they are in pretty much, they're in tank mode. Like I've talked to some of their fans. I know some of my close friends actually are Flyers fans, and they're just like, it's a throwaway season. Like the state of their franchise is not the same that it was even 4 or 5 years ago. So like the Blue Jackets are favorites in this game. And there's probably going to be very few teams that they end up being favorites against all year. But they're favorites in this game. Blue Jackets didn't do well last year, by the way. They were only favorites in 6 games all of last season, and they won. They were 2-4 in those games. So that just is a reminder of how bad things were last year. It's just nice to just fully flip the page, and it's a new season. We completely forget about last year once this season gets going. And I don't know how you don't look at the Blue Jackets roster versus what the Flyers are going to be pulling out there and not be more excited, not be like excited. As you said, the Flyers are going to be without Kevin Hayes, Tony DeAngelo, and Ivan Provorov is playing on the Blue Jackets now. So it's like he was one of their better defensemen last year. He's playing for the Blue Jackets. So and Torts is we know the style of hockey he's going to bring. It's going to be hard hitting. It's probably going to be tough for some of the younger Blue Jackets players out there. But again, Blue Jackets seem to be going for more of a seniority-based lineup in this one, which makes sense. So I'm really excited, Jay. I think it's going to be a lot of goals tonight. I think it's a big chance for Elvis to start the season off on the right foot. The question is, can the Blue Jackets get past a goalie like Carter Hart, who's been really steady and really solid the last 5 seasons for the Flyers. But I'm excited.
See, I feel like they have a huge what's the word I want? They have a huge question mark in goal with Carter Hart. He was supposed to be, the chosen one, kind of in the same way that Elvis was supposed to be the chosen one for the Blue Jackets. And I think he just hasn't panned out to what they need him to be. I think partially that's because the Flyers defense has been actively on fire for most of his Philadelphia tenure, which is not his fault. But I think for them to get anywhere, he needs to be the guy, and I don't know that he's going to be the guy, but I feel like this is a really good opener for the Blue Jackets. I feel like they always get like they've had home openers against like the defending Stanley Cup champions, or that one year that they had like Boston at the height of its power as their home opener opponent, and it gets a little like New York, I feel like, is always in the mix, and the Blue Jackets can never seem to beat the Rangers. To play against a team where, like you said, they are the favorites could be really good for a real like pop to start the season. And we're going to talk a little bit about what the Blue Jackets need to do to win this game. But I want to talk a little bit more about the Flyers, and one Flyer in particular. That's Cam Atkinson, who missed all of last season, has not been in the Flyers lineup. I don't know that he's played in Nationwide since getting traded, or if he has, I think it's literally just like one game. So that's going to be cool to see him back. We still miss Cam Atkinson. He's going to be playing on the second line with Owen Tippett and Morgan Frost, who I think are two of the more underrated young players in the Flyers lineup. I especially like Morgan Frost. I think that line could cause some problems. But I'm looking at this lineup, and there's not really anyone in it that like scares me. Like you look at the Pittsburgh Penguins lineup and you're like, oh, Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Carlson. I look at this lineup and I'm like, man, they sure do have Travis Sanheim playing on the top pair, Is there anyone on this team that you think could cause problems for the Blue Jackets in this game?
Like guys like Cam York, he's a really solid pro. Travis Konechny, he popped off a couple of years ago, but he really actually Travis Konechny was a point a game last year. So you got to be worried about him a little bit. Owen Tippett, who's going to be 24 years old now coming into this game, he had 49 points in 77 games last year. So from a Flyers fan perspective, you're really excited about this season in the sense that you're waiting for some of those players probably to take greater strides in what they already are. I mean, Konechny feels like he's been around for kind of a while now, but he's only 25. So it's like they still have some guys in their core that I think they're looking to build around. And yeah, maybe you are actually excited for a guy like Cam Atkinson being back in your lineup because, as you said, he missed all of last year. I'm looking at their stats. I don't even see him on this page. And just going to some of those Cap City Elite League games this year when he was playing in those games, I know it was 3-on-3 kind of practice or kind of, pickup game vibes. But he did have a certain pop underneath him. Like he looked like he was the old Cam Atkinson again. Now, what can he do on his own? He's always been a player that has kind of really relied on the other players on his line, but he's going to have extra motivation being back at Nationwide. And you just never know with the Torts built team because they're going to come out, they're going to hit you, and I think it's going to be tougher for some of the younger Blue Jackets. And I know we're going to talk more about what the Blue Jackets need to do, but I'm really intrigued to see what Cole Sillinger is going to do on the top line tomorrow night. So yeah, as much as we're not really too scared of the Flyers, you don't ever want to take them lightly. And Carter Hart, you're right. He hasn't been kind of that stud goalie that everybody thought he was going to be, but he had a .9 save percentage last year, 2.94 goals against, was 22, 23, and 10. So that's solid. Like he's a solid goaltender. He is in the same situation, you're right, as Elvis, but I think they going into this matchup tomorrow night, I think the Flyers probably like their goalie situation a little better. Now, this is the chance for Elvis to come out, get a win, and and just move on and focus on the Rangers. But yeah, I don't know. Konechny is kind of the big guy that I guess I'm really worried about. And then Cam Atkinson too, just playing back at Nationwide. And then Cam York on the defense is going to be solid too. But outside of that, I think the Blue Jackets should handle this team tonight. Excuse me.
I will say Owen Tippett had 2 goals the last time these two teams matched up. Ivan Provorov had 2 assists. And Joel Farabee and James Van Riemsdyk also had goals. Now, James Van Riemsdyk is not on the team anymore, obviously. I don't know where he is. He's in Boston now. I agree. Travis Konechny, always dangerous. Which is, I love that you call him like the big guy because he is like 5'6", which I do enjoy. But he, like you said, he's always going to be a problem. And I don't know if that's like problem affectionately or problem like derogatory, but he's going to be a problem. Cam Atkinson revenge game would be something interesting, but I also think that there's possibility of an Ivan Provorov revenge game. There are a lot of reports about how he wasn't happy in the Flyers organization, and he, I think, was one of the best Blue Jackets in the preseason. So I'm looking for him to have a big game against his former team. But we're going to talk about what the Blue Jackets need to do to win this game, and we'll also make some predictions in the next segment. So that's coming up here in just a minute on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, though, I've got to tell you guys about Sleeper, because the NHL season is finally here. Are the Blue Jackets going to have the season that we've been longing for? I love the NHL. I know Hayden loves the NHL, and I know you guys do as well, and that's why you're listening to this show, and that's why I want to tell you about Sleeper. It is the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network, and it's my go-to for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you can win 100 times your money on daily fantasy, so all you got to do is pick a player like, for example, let's say Patrick Laine to score more than 2 goals in tonight's game. If you get that right, you're going to get 100 times the money that you bet back on that. Start paying attention, get your picks right, and you could win big on Sleeper. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, all one word, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. All right, Hayden, what is your biggest key to the game for the Blue Jackets? We talked a little bit yesterday, obviously, about lineup choices. It looks like it's going to be Kent Johnson, Liam Foudy, and Adam Boquist are the odd men out in this, which take from that what you will. What do the Blue Jackets need to do to win this game?
Yeah, they need to protect Elvis. Like, the defense needs to look better. That was the group that got the biggest overhaul last year or in the offseason. So I expect big things out of the defense tonight. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it, because if you look at last year between the Blue Jackets and Flyers, the Flyers in 4 games outscored the Blue Jackets 16-15. And the Blue Jackets putting 15 goals up the Jackets actually outscored the Flyers 16-15, but the Flyers were 2-1-1 in those games. So these two teams, the over is definitely in play tonight, but goals are going to be scored. You're probably going to score goals. Protect Elvis, keep him to 1 to 2 goals, and just be ready for that Torts hockey. I mean, come on, like, nobody should know John Tortorella better than the Blue Jackets organization. You know what they're going to bring, you know how they're going to play. Use your players that are really good with puck possession, like Kirill Marchenko, Patrick Laine, Johnny Gaudreau. Just try to continue to dominate the offensive zone the way that the Blue Jackets did in the preseason, and just be tough. All they got to do is be tough. I feel like if they come in and know that it might not be that high scoring game. It could be that 2-1, 3-2 kind of game. As long as you protect Elvis and play some tough hockey, I think they'll get it done tonight. And I think that's the biggest key for me. I know I listed like 50 keys there, but the biggest one is protect Elvis. Yeah,
I agree. I was also going to say protect Elvis. I think if you can limit the Flyers to less than 20 shots, that to me feels like a very winnable game. Because I feel like there were a lot of games last season where the Blue Jackets looked fine, and then you look at the shot count and you're like, oh, they let the Panthers have 48 shots on goal. Which is not ideal. Something else I would love to see the power play click. The Flyers had the 26th best power play last season, penalty kill last season, excuse me. So only 6 teams were worse on the penalty kill than the Flyers, and the Blue Jackets were not one of them, which is fun. So if they can get that power play clicking early, obviously they've got a fully healthy Zach Werenski on that back end. They've got Patrick Laine, who looks ready to just put a hole in the back of the net. A healthy Jenner as well. I think it's going to be, if they can get the power play clicking, I think that might be the key. If they could get, 2, maybe 3 power play goals, depending on, obviously penalties are up at the start of the season because the officials call everything that even looks like it might be a hooking penalty, which is really frustrating because they want to be seen as if they are doing their job. So they're like, well, I'm just going to call, if a player stands next to someone, I'm going to call him for a penalty. So the power play has to get results. And I would like it if the penalty kill was not terrible either, but if the power play starts clicking, that feels like a big, big thing to me.
Yeah, the power play's got to look good, and I expect the Blue Jackets power play to look good, especially in the friendly confines of Nationwide. I am interested to see, going back to the Flyers here, I know we talked about what the Blue Jackets need to do. I am interested to see what their young Bobby Brink is going to bring to the table. Looks like they're starting him on the first line. He's a 22-year-old right winger from Denver and Denver College, that is, or Denver University, excuse me.
Denver University, I believe.
Yeah.
I believe he won a national championship a couple of seasons ago with Denver. So he's definitely a guy that I am going to be paying attention to. He could be a real kind of almost a hidden gem for this team. But
yeah, but again, the Blue Jackets they have their own young guys too that have, like, Cole Sillinger. Like, again, I keep leaning on him because we thought he had a good preseason. We said he deserves to be on the opening night roster. I didn't think he deserves to be on the top line. But again, I'm not the coach, as Jeff Svoboda, who joined us on the program yesterday, said he's not the coach either. So we don't know. We don't know what Pascal Vincent saw in Cole Sillinger to be like he deserves top line. Maybe he had good chemistry with Patrick Laine and Kirill Marchenko, Johnny Gaudreau. But yeah, that's going to be fun. I think those possession numbers are going to be crazy. Cole Sillinger he's also just a really good player who gets down low in the crease and can bang those pucks home, like that's kind of his sweet spot. He's kind of like a young Boone Jenner in a way, or a young Nick Foligno in a way. Like, he's just going to float around outside of the crease and get those gritty goals. So I'd love to see that. And I didn't mean to bring gritty up on the podcast where the Blue Jackets are getting ready to play the Flyers. So we don't want to see that. I wonder if we're going to see a fight tomorrow night because Nick Delorier is on that fourth line. The tension is going to be probably pretty high because it's an opening night game. I feel like most of the opening night games kind of bring a playoff energy to it. So, and without Mathieu Olivier in the lineup, maybe like a Sean Corrali, Nick Delorier fight could be fun. I would say Eric Branson because he's kind of that fighter, but I don't know. He's way too big. I don't know if anybody wants to drop the gloves with him. But yeah. And then speaking of a guy like Eric Branson, like, the pressure's off you now because you're playing on the third line D pair. So I'd like to see a better version of him than what we've seen in the past. I don't know how you feel about that, but the third line could be a good spot for Eric Branson, especially if Jake Bean is going to come out, the young gun he is, and just take a little bit of pressure off Branson. I think if we can get a really good Eric Branson tomorrow night, then that could be fun as well. So, sorry, I forget what your question was leading up to that spiel. I'm so excited. Look at me. I got my polo on. I never put my Jackets polo on, but it's a game day, so I'm fired up right now.
Yeah, I think the defense is going to be really interesting. I think I'd like to see Eric Branson have a good game. He has not been terrible in preseason. I was looking at some of his advanced stats earlier, but I agree. Limit his minutes. Like, the worst thing that happens is he plays like 15 minutes a game and is bad in those 15 minutes. It's not going to be like he's playing 28 minutes a game, which he did at some point last season and was just getting shelled defensively. So I think the defense is going to be really interesting. I'm looking for that top four to have a real impact. I'm not sold on Andrew Peak as Zach Werenski's defense partner yet, but we'll see. We'll see where that goes. By all accounts, they are trying to make a trade so they could get David Jiricek into the NHL. Whether that trade is Peak, whether that is Boquist, whether that is Bean. I suspect not Bean, just because of the way that the defense pairings kind of shake out. They need a spot on the right. Jake Bean plays on the left side, so my guess is they're trying to shop either Peak or Boquist. to try and get Juracek into the NHL, which I'm hyped about. But let's finish off with our kind of game preview talk, and then we're going to talk a little bit about one more prospect that I had a conversation with Sebastian High about late last week. But let's do some predictions. So Hayden and I are going to keep track of these. We're going to do them for every single game, and what we're going to do is we're going to predict the final score, and we're going to predict who scores the opening goal. So if we get either of those things right, we get a point. If we get both of them right, we get a bonus point. So there's a maximum of 3 points available per game here. And then at the end of the season, I don't know what the winner gets yet, but we'll figure something out. Maybe we'll send each other a bottle of whiskey or something. So let's get into some predictions. What do you think is going to be the final score, and who is scoring the opening goal for the Blue Jackets?
Yeah, I think the final score tomorrow night is going to be, or tonight. I keep calling it tomorrow night, but that's because I'm already past the Flyers. I already got a win for the Jackets. I already got a 5-3 win for the Jackets. I'm already focused on to the New York Rangers, which is Saturday night. So, but hockey is back and in my face, so I'm having a hard time keeping track of all my teams, all my bets. But yes, I got the Jackets on a 5-3 win, and I'm going to go with the captain to score a goal. I'm going to go with Boone Jenner gets the first one. Seems like teams forget about him. Focus is going to be on guys like Kirill Marchenko, Patrick Laine, Johnny Gaudreau. I think Boone Jenner finds a way to just sneak by the defense and put one in that's really, really pretty. So I'm going to go with Jens.
Yeah, I feel like Boone Jenner is always good for just a really unexpected goal.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like sometimes you see players and you know they're going to score. I feel like Boone Jenner just sometimes scores, and I'm like, how?
Yeah.
How did this happen? I am going to also predict Jackets win. I'm going to say 4-2. Oh, we've swapped places. Oh, how did that happen?
I did that. My bad. Oh, that's how excited we are.
All good. I'm going to leave that in. I'm too lazy to cut that out.
Good.
I'm going to go with a 4-2 Blue Jackets win. And I got to go with the big guy. I got to go with Patrick Laine. Top line center, opened the scoring for the Blue Jackets last season. And I have a good feeling about this season for Patrick Laine. I think he's going to start strong, and I think he's going to be an absolute beast this season. So I'm going to go with Patrick Laine and a 4-2 Jackets win.
It worked for you. It worked for you in the preseason. I remember we were doing this via text, and you picked Patrick Laine to score the first goal in one of these games. I think it was against Buffalo, and you nailed that one. So that's
always a safe bet, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's kind of it for our little preview. Hayden's going to be going solo tomorrow because I will be at the Sharks home opener instead, having a giant blue margarita and watching the Sharks lose. It's going to be great. But he'll go over
who do they play
in tomorrw game.
Who do they play? The Sharks.
Vegas.
Oh, yeah, they are going to lose. Okay, never mind.
But this is not a Sharks podcast. This is a Blue Jackets podcast. We're going to take another quick break, and then I'm going to give you guys a conversation that I had with Sebastian High late last week, all about Luca Pinelli, friend of the show, just got named the captain of the Ottawa 67s in the OHL. And Sebastian is a big fan of this kid, and we decided that we would talk a little bit about him, what his journey to the NHL could look like, and what the Blue Jackets might have in Luca Pinelli. So that's coming up next here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, though, I got to tell you guys about FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers are going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Whether you win or lose that bet doesn't matter. All you have to do is put your $5 in, and they're going to give you $200 back. And you can use those bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. If I was you, I would put that money on the Blue Jackets winning tonight, and I would put them on Patrick Laine scoring at least one goal. So, you know, that's my my official endorsement of FanDuel here. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is easy to use. You don't have to wait around to get paid. You get deposits instantly. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL and the NHL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL, and also us, the Locked On Podcast Network. Let's finish off with one last prospect. And for the listeners, I do want to make sure that you know that this was a prospect that Sebastian requested we talk about. And I was like, absolutely. I'm always happy to talk about this guy. We had him on the show last month. Super great kid. We're going to talk a little bit about Luca Pinelli, who just got named captain of the Ottawa 67s. I believe scored the first goal of the preseason for
I was
them
there
as
for
well.
it. Yes, he did.
And
Of the regular season, actually.
Oh, of the regular
Ottawa.
season,
Yeah,
excuse me.
yeah.
He opened the scoring
he's
for the
on it.
67s this season.
He's on it.
And is another one of those players that, like Malatesta, like Gavin Brindley, plays the game at like 125 miles an hour or nothing, and there's no real in between. So, what's your let's just start off with what's your elevator pitch scouting report on Pinelli?
Well, I started watching him 2 years ago and fell in love with him the first game I scouted. And last season, he basically played 0 games at center and had like the worst power play role, and his usage was awful, like infuriating the entire season. And this season, I was expecting him to probably either get traded out of Ottawa because the coach clearly didn't trust him, or play a role way smaller than what he deserved. And instead, he's now the captain and the 1C. So I'm thrilled about it. I'm very happy that he's getting this opportunity because I believe in this player so much. Luca Pinelli is a hyper-intelligent and skilled forward who has a really high motor. He's really intelligent defensively. He's perhaps not the most dynamic player with the puck on his stick in the world. Not the best not the fastest or paciest player in the world, but he's really agile. He's really deceptive. He's really smart. Again, his value boils down to his intelligence. He uses his line mates so incredibly well. Last season, for the beginning part of the season, Ottawa had the best top line in the entire CHL, and it consisted of Pinelli, Vincenz Rohr, who was a third-round pick at the Habs, and Tyler Boucher, famous 10th overall draft pick. And jokes aside, that was a fantastic line, and it fit so perfectly because Pinelli was the clock that made that line tick, because he was the hyper intelligent piece on that line that would distribute the puck. He would basically control the pace of play of the line itself. Basically, think of Luca Pinelli as like a really nerfed Zach Benson. He has some of the same capabilities where he's really, really intense as a skater. He's super intelligent. He's not the fastest. Skating is definitely something that he still has to work on a little bit. The defensive game isn't quite as strong as Benson's, obviously, but it is a strength. And he's a really, really good leader on the ice. I've been a really big fan of him in every single high stakes game I've watched Ottawa play in the last couple seasons. He's always one of the couple players that steps it up big time in those situations. And this is one of those players that I just adore watching. He's been developed kind of into a finisher with the 67s, where he's kind of used as a trigger man on the power play. But I'm hoping that this year, considering he got his role got switched from being like that right hash mark trigger man because he's a left shot, he's now instead the left dot distributor, which is a way better role for him. And I'm really happy because he's a true dual threat from there. He can either send in a wrist shot, which is how he scored that first goal of the season, or he can distribute to any of his 4 options on the ice. Whereas where he was last season, he was purely a finisher. Whenever he got the puck, his instruction was to shoot the puck. And that limited his value a ton because he's such a capable passer when he is told to pass the puck and he's in a position to do so. And while his playmaking game really couldn't develop much last season because of those role restrictions, I'm quite hopeful that he's able to work on that this year and maybe work in his playmaking to kind of match his finishing again, because as a rookie, he was a stronger playmaker than he was a goal scorer. It was really only last season where that shifted completely into the goal scoring direction. So that's my 8-minute long elevator pitch, long elevator ride.
Listen, we all have prospects that we can talk about forever, so I respect it. What kind of ceiling do you think he has? Obviously, he's literally 18 years old right now. He's probably going to be 2 years away from the AHL, spend some time there, and then move to the NHL after that. Yeah. But do you see him as kind of middle six talent for the NHL, or what do you think his floor to ceiling is?
Yeah, middle six is the comfortable projection for me. I think that if you get a second liner out of Luca Pinelli, it's because his development has gone quite well. I think there is definitely that ceiling. I just think that he really does, like, a lot of it hitches on how he's used in Ottawa now in the next 2 years. Like, coaching and overall usage is one of the biggest factors in development and doesn't really get talked about too much. Like, junior coaches have so much power in terms of deciding which prospects develop at a faster rate than others. So it will depend on that. Though recent interviews with Dave Cameron, Ottawa's coach, have made it seem like Pinelli is one of his absolute favorite players, which I never would have guessed, considering I went to every game last season. That was not on my radar as a possibility, but hearing that was really great, because it means that hopefully this season Pinelli is going to get every opportunity possible, and clearly, at least to start the season. I mean, the fact that he's playing at center and the fact that he has that prime distributor role in the power play were the two things that I was yelling for the entirety of last year that I never got once. And then to start the season, it's already there. And it's like, okay, this is great. So that's already trending in the right direction for me. But yeah, I think middle six upside is where I would be hopeful for. I don't think top line upside is really within the realm of possibilities here. But he has a great fallback game where he's this intense, intelligent, possible third line piece who definitely comes in with some clutch goals and assists here and there, but can be trusted to just be a really solid 200-foot intelligent player who does a little bit of everything quite well. And his intelligence and hopefully the finishing ability are then the two things that really set him apart from the rest of the pack. So I'm hopeful for him to develop to that type of middle six role for a really long time. But he's not a sure thing either. I had him higher up on my draft ranking earlier on the season. I think he was as high up as like 15th overall on my board at some point, pretty early on, like maybe like December of last year. And he finished up, I think, in like 45 or something. Like he was in my 40s, I think, which was lower than my heart had him. I definitely wanted him higher than that. At heart, I had him at 50. Yeah, my heart had him at like 25. But in the end, there are some tool limitations there that were concerning to me. And honestly, the coaching was a big reason that I dropped him far on my board, because I was like, well, if this kid's going to be stuck not getting many opportunities with Ottawa for the next 2 seasons, I don't like his chances anymore. And just the fact, like, if fingers crossed, his utilization continues as it started in that home opener for Ottawa, I could have ranked him as high up as like 35 on my board. Like, that was already a pretty big gap, was just like uncertainty of how he's developed in the couple years after being drafted. So that's already a pretty good green flag to start off with here. But yeah, Pinelli is one of my absolute favorite players. I've loved scouting him. He's a joy to watch. Fans are going to adore him. Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, so I wanted to just kind of finish off. I went to look. It looks like both of his regular line mates from last season are playing elsewhere this season.
Yeah.
Tyler Boucher's aged out, obviously, and it looks like Roar has gone back to Switzerland.
Yeah.
So I guess on the one hand, that's him losing his 2 regular line mates, which is probably going to impact his production. On the other hand,
Yeah.
I feel like it gives him a chance to be the guy in
For sure.
Ottawa, which is probably going to be really good. Obviously, he's been given the captaincy. He is the 1C until further notice. If they can find 2 more line mates for him to click with, that could be a really positive thing. How do you, like, do the pros outweigh the cons there, do you think?
I don't know about that. I like Ottawa has been stripped, basically. Like, this is now Luca Pinelli's team, when last season the team had players like again, like Roar, Boucher, Pavel Mintyukov, Jack Mateer, Logan Morrison was excellent. Cameron Tolnai was an overager who basically got every single big defensive draw and was like that stalwart defensive piece, and he's gone too. Basically everyone that logged big minutes last year is gone. So it's down to just Pinelli now. He's been playing with Brady Stonehouse quite a bit, who's one of my favorite undrafted players in the CHL. Really, really like high octane, undersized power forward. Really fun player. Type of guy that's going to get like an ELC in a couple of years' time and is just going to be a 4th liner forever. I really like him a ton, but he's not necessarily the highest skill guy that you would want Pinelli to play with. Like for me, Stone has like a second liner ideally in the CHL, whereas Pinelli is the one like actual first liner on this team. So playing with line mates that are up on his level is going to be an issue this season. Ottawa went and traded for a 20-year-old today, spent an 8th round draft pick to get a guy that got like 40 points in 60 games last season from Owen Sound. So, and he's 6'7". So I assume they're just going to plug him next to Pinelli. So I'm not quite sure what's going to be like on the offensive front, just because there was so much talent in Ottawa last season and they've been completely stripped. And there aren't many guys in Ottawa that I think could be ready to take the mantle as like the next offensive guys. You got, in terms of drafted talent, you've got Brad Gardner of the Dallas Stars, who's a solid two-way center, but not someone you want on a top line. Same thing with like Cooper Foster, who's a decent enough winger. I think it was a Pittsburgh pick. They're guys, but they're middle six pieces. So Ottawa really lacks those high-end guys, and the contention window for the 67s is closed at this point, and they're like going to enter a rebuild next season. Like my sense is they're going to scramble for a playoff spot this year before rebuilding next year. And yeah, so the timeline isn't the best for Pinelli, because this isn't going to be a great team over his final seasons of CHL eligibility, but he is quite easily de facto the guy. So he's going to get minutes. I don't know if he's going to produce a ton, but he's going to play minutes. And that's the most important thing for his development, is to get reps. And he's going to likely play with a lot of players that aren't quite on his level. So that might hinder his development, or you're just going to see a massive boost in his performances once he ages up to the AHL. So that could have a variety of outcomes, but it's a pretty typical CHL situation. So I wouldn't be too concerned for his development in terms of being surrounded by players that are way below his level. But the production might not pop quite as high as people might expect of him. So just that might be a little caveat in there.
Yeah, temper your expectations, folks.
Exactly.
For
I know
the production, I've been trying to temper my expectations. So basically every prospect this summer, and I still find myself going, yeah, Adam Fantilli's going to get 60 points and win the Calder, but it's fine.
160 points. I raise you. It'd be great. I'd love it. Yeah. Maybe
so
not
if
realistic,
people want
but
to... If people want to learn more about Prospect, there's been a ton of really great Blue Jackets prospect talk over on your show. Where can people find that? Where can people find you on the internet if they want to learn more about their prospects of this team or any team?
Yeah, you can find me on most platforms at this point. I mean, on any listening platform or YouTube. Me and my good friend and colleague, Hattie Kalakash, produce a lot of work for Locked On NHL Prospects. We're up to 5 podcasts a week at this point. So there's a ton of content going your way from there. Most of my work I post on Twitter. So _Sebastian on Twitter is where you can kind of find most of my stuff. And if you're interested in more of like the nitty gritty prospect stuff as well, I'm the head scout over at Dubber Prospects. So you can go follow Dubber Prospects and go check out the website. We're going to be posting a lot there for this draft class throughout the year. And we have our scouting staff all set up and ready to go for the season. And it's going to be very exciting to break down the 2024 draft class too. So yeah, my work's kind of scattered around everywhere, covering anything ranging from players that were drafted 10 years ago to players that are going to be drafted in 2 years. So, I'm covering my bases here online.
Well, I personally would love if the Blue Jackets did not make me do a ton of draft research this year for the 4th year in a row, but I will still be checking out Locked On NHL Prospect, and all my everydayers should do that as well. So thanks for coming to hang out, Sebastian, and talk about some Blue Jackets prospect. We'll have to do this again and cover a couple more guys later in the season.
Oh, for sure, it'll be fun.
And that's all we've got for today. Shout out to Sebastian for doing some really, really great prospect work for us there. That is the last check-in that we have with Sebastian for prospects, but I'm sure we'll have him and Hattie Kalakash, the other host of Locked On NHL Prospect, on the show again very, very soon, because the Blue Jackets have a ton of really exciting prospects. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find Hayden over at HaydenH971. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. You can email us at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Make sure you email us a screenshot of you being subscribed to our YouTube channel to be entered into the draw for 2 tickets to the November 2nd game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Thank you for listening, to making us your first listen every single day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms. We're over on YouTube. We're on Sirius XM. Hayden will be back tomorrow with a recap of tonight's game and a look ahead to the New York Rangers that the Blue Jackets are going to be facing on Saturday. So make sure you tune in for that. And until then, make sure you stay locked on.